Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video I want to share with you my thoughts on how Summoner is shaping up so far in Endwalker. It was one of the first jobs I leveled, and a lot of the changes are at least in the vein of what I wanted for the job fantasy, so I want to talk about it. For the video, I will be including some footage of me playing the job, but I really only have good footage from doing the Endwalker Extreme Trials. I know not everyone wants to watch that, not everyone wants to be spoiled, but they still want to hear my thoughts. So if you want to hear my thoughts but not see any spoilers, take a moment now to minimize the video, and after I say take care, like I do at the end of every video, you can safely turn it off without having to see anything. You've been warned. So Summoner is a job with a pretty tumultuous history. In A Realm Reborn, it was a massive dot job, and the pets just kind of seemed like an afterthought. Every expansion since then, it's kind of moved more and more in the direction of putting focus on the summons, or at least what they are. Initially, you just channeled Bahamut through yourself, then you actually got to summon Bahamut, then you could summon Phoenix, and now the summoning identity is completely taken over. But how has that panned out so far? Well, Summoner now is a summoning machine, basically becoming our secret third new job for Endwalker. Gone are the dots, and in are Garuda, Ifrit, and Titan. Not the little forms, the big forms, like people were asking for years and years and years. The job has this constant barrage of dopamine hits, with a seemingly never-ending chain of mass summons, one that fulfills the job fantasy in a way I never felt was fully accomplished before. You are a summoner, and with this identity, the sky's the limit with what the job can possibly incorporate in its kit in the future. So the things I like about the job, as you can probably tell, are the aesthetics right off the bat. These gigantic summons coming out and obliterating everything on the screen. I know it's a visual mess, but I love it. There's this presence and feeling of power that mimics the job's history in the franchise. And if you do need the effects turned down, there is the /pet size command, /pet size all small, made a video about it. But as Larry would no doubt say, bigger pets mean bigger DPS. I promise. The job's gameplay was also heavily streamlined to make these new systems work, so much so that Summoner has the majority of its most important gameplay tools actually when they're back as a wee Arcanist, making for a really smooth leveling experience. Your Carbuncles become Eggies, and your Eggies become those full-fledged summons. Your damage phase becomes Bahamut, who then shares that role with Phoenix. It's about going from smaller to bigger, in aesthetics and numbers, while keeping a consistent identity across 90 levels. This also means it's a job that's really easy to pick up and play regardless of your skill level. There are some finer points to nail home when you get into the thick of endgame content, but the idea of how you want to play still just flows similarly the whole time. So as you can tell, I'm super into what Summoner is presenting, but that doesn't mean that I'm all the way happy with the way it's actually playing, and it came with some pretty major drawbacks. For one, the job's nothing like its previous iterations. To some people, yeah, that's a good thing, people who didn't like it before. But what about the people who did like it before? They've basically had their job taken away, and while I may not have agreed with that version of Summoner, I have to empathize a little bit with that identity being just completely ripped from them and replaced with something that people may not mesh with. Now, not to mention, I said it was streamlined, and that doesn't always mean engaging or perfect. Summoner is basically use Bahamut, dump everything, then use your summons, dump everything, then use Phoenix, dump everything, and repeat over and over again. Yes, the excitement of summoning is great, but it came with a level of simplicity that I don't think we've seen in a job before. Even the easiest versions of pre-existing jobs didn't come close to how simple this is right here. Quite frankly, that means it's going to be boring for some people. If you don't get the dopamine hits from the summons, especially if you made them small, you're probably going to be bored. I'm going to be honest. And with the dots gone, that identity's completely lost, and I said in my Bard video, I love dot jobs when they're done well. I just don't want them to completely abandon them in 14, and it seems like that's what they're gradually doing. Oh, and speaking of Bahamut and Phoenix, it's pretty weird that Phoenix, your level 80 skill, is actually weaker than Bahamut, your level 70 skill. I get that Phoenix at level 90, it's your 1 minute summon, and that makes sense. That's supposed to be the weaker of the two. Your 2 minutes are stronger than your 1 minute, so Bahamut is the bigger damage summon. But it's kind of weird. You hit level 80, and it's like, oh, suddenly I'm weaker once a minute in exchange for a healing utility that you get to cast on one person and an AoE regen? I don't know. Dev team might want to take a look at this in the future. Just doesn't make sense. Now, going back to that streamlined nature, I said that that's what the rotation is, and honestly, there's almost no flexibility in this. The strictness in the rotation's a blessing and a curse. Yes, it's very easy to follow that. If anything does disrupt your rotation though, it really does suck. I mentioned this in my Bard video. This is a problem with having everything on 60s and 120s, and something I wonder if they'll address in the future. Now, if you go the low spell speed build for Summoner, which personally I don't think is a good idea right now, you get 1 free global cooldown a minute. So if you need to resurrect somebody with a swift cast, okay, you've got 1, but if you ever need to slow cast, you're doomed. You just don't have the room to do it, or you have to start throwing away GCDs inside of your different summon windows, inside your Titan, inside your Ifrit, just to kind of get back on track, if that makes sense. Now, there is, of course, the spell speed build, which allows you to have some more room, but honestly, I guess it's just weird that you really don't have a choice, in my opinion, if you're into endgame raiding. You just have to take that safety, and besides, the DPS and the burst windows are mildly more interesting on that higher spell speed build. Another thing is, Carbuncle doesn't attack. He just stands there and waits for you to activate 1 of 2 skills, or for you to summon everything else. Yeah, he's super responsive because of this, but it's weird. He's just like a witness to everything that's happening. I assume with so few animations, it's because Aegiglam, they don't need to worry about animating all the different attacks now. So maybe we'll finally see it. Had to bring it up. And finally, the DPS is quite low right now. Yeah, the numbers look big and satisfying and everything, but they just need a little bit of a bump. This doesn't have anything to do with the gameplay. Potency fixes are easy enough, so they'll probably bring up maybe like Ruby Right, a bunch of potency, and maybe some of the other rights can go up a little bit. But listen, I'm enjoying it. I love the aesthetic. I feel like it's a good, clean slate to have. I mean, you can do so much with this job because it's just kind of not barren, but basic, I suppose. It's just very clear and clean about what it wants to be, what it wants to do. So now maybe you can add Summon Alexander or Summon Susano and I can revel! One day. One day. But with that, I think that's going to be a wrap for my thoughts on Summoner. Man, I just really hope that it gets a few adjustments here or there. They look at some of the potential design flaws and just shape those things up, because I'm going to have a lot of fun on this job, I can tell you that. Anyway, be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. Keep an eye out for more job thought videos. I've been leveling them as fast as I can, or at least as fast as Fates will let me while I'm farming my mount for that. But yeah, hopefully I'll be getting a lot of those out before Savage comes out, and then of course after if I don't get them out before then. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, take care.